The Clipse, Pusha T, and No Malice are back. This is going to be their first album since 2009's Till the Casket Drops. They're releasing a new album called Let God Sort 'Em Out, and that's going to drop on July 11th. So yeah, this is the first album in, 16 years? And I remember when Lord Willin' just came out. In fact, I remember when Grindin', that first single that was pretty much their breakthrough, hit the radio and hit the music video channels, and you knew that it was a Neptunes beat. This is a couple years into the Neptunes basically taking over music after having like single after single for other artists like Mystical, Jay-Z. Well, these two cats from Virginia who were evidently brothers, you look at them and you're like, yeah, y'all are related. They came out to this remember that door slamming sound on that beat for Grindin', and the opening lyrics from ghetto to ghetto, backyard to yard. Like, you're thinking, man, these guys are sounding smooth on this track. And the album that followed, Lord Willin', pretty much made good on that early promise from that single. And look, I'm gonna refer to Lord Willin' as the debut, even though I know they had that first album exclusive audio footage from a few years prior, but for all intents and purposes, in terms of their mainstream career, it was Lord Willin', which I remember liking the second single, Virginia, in Virginia, where ain't shit to do but cook. I'm like, man, I'm liking this crew. And I remember loving the track 2 from Lord Willin', When I Was a Young Boy, where you got Pharrell singing on the hook. My mama told me, don't take no ish. Mother, it hit your kid, you better hit him back. Like, if you listen to that beat, it was so bouncy and it was so Neptunes-like, but it was just a perfect fit for this group's debut, I use that loosely, debut album. So yeah, Lord Willin' was just a hit. Perfect album for this duo coming in. And I have to say, the album that followed a few years later, there was a good amount of a gap in between those albums because of record label politics. Basically, the label that they were on got bought out by another label. So they pretty much were just sitting on this music. It was a label mess, but it led to the delay of Hell Hath No Fury, which again was their second album that was arguably better than Lord Willin'. Like, critically acclaim wise, yeah, Hell Hath No Fury is the Clipse best album. Now you're gonna have to ask more fans of the Clipse which one they prefer between those first two, but Hell Hath No Fury with Mr. Me Too, with God Damn, with Womp Womp, What It Do. I used to like that single with Slim Thug, and I'm tripping that God Damn, that was from Lord Willin', the prior album. But yeah, Hell Hath No Fury had We Got It For Cheap, the intro. It had Mama, I'm so sorry, I'm so obnoxious. Like, I mean, look, the choruses, bar for bar, they were just like phenomenal songs, like from top to bottom. I can't say anything bad about Hell Hath No Fury. I mean, keys open doors, keys open doors. Yeah, everything about it I pretty much like. Now, they weren't like the biggest selling group at all, never were. But in terms of album by album quality, critical acclaim, fan base, and just, you know, track by track quality, they just had it going on, seriously, especially with those first two albums. Now, their third album, Till the Casket Drops, dropped 3 years later, and that was their final album. Malice, now known as No Malice, he converted to Christianity. Like, he was pretty much born again and didn't mess with the rap stuff anymore. And I mean, content-wise, they were the new generation's coke rap experts. Like, nowadays you had like Conway the Machine. You've got a lot of lyrical coke rappers today that will feature, you know, Pusha T or No Malice on a track, or will feature, you know, Raekwon the Chef from, you know, the prior generations, you know, 90s rappers, because there's kind of like a lineage of coke rap. Well, for this era, that was the Clipse. And you know, who knew that Pusha T would go on to have the solo career that he had? But before we get into that, let's just acknowledge that for those 3 albums, Lord Willin', Hell Hath No Fury, and Till the Casket Drops, I tried to think of the artists that had the best album by album discographies in terms of having no album that was a step below the others. Like, Outkast is always the one that jumps out. You know, Eminem, if he stopped after the Eminem show, he would be one of them, because the Slim Shady LP, the Marshall Mathers LP, and the Eminem show, if he stopped after that, he would have batted 3 for 3. Perfect, right? And the Roots, like for their first few albums, I thought they had that with Organics, Do You Want More, Philadelphia, Half-Life, Things Fall Apart. If they stopped there and then they went on with, Phrenology and The Tipping Point, not bad albums, but just most Roots fans would say that no, they weren't on par with the earliest stuff. Outkast, again, I look at as being the gold standard in terms of never having an album that was a step below the others. If anything, they kind of evolved and grew album over album, where no album was like the prior album, but it was just as good, if not better, right? You could argue that Aquemini is their best, and that was like their third. So Aquemini, even if it was better than Stankonia, you can't look at the album that had Miss Jackson and So Fresh and So Clean and Bombs Over Baghdad and a ton of other non-single, really good songs. You can't look at that as being a true step down. Same thing with the Speaker Box of Love Below. Now, Idlewild, I don't consider a true Outkast album. That was a soundtrack, so I don't consider that one. So Outkast, I look at as being the gold standard. A lot of other artists who would be up for consideration, Kendrick Lamar, you could argue that there was no drop off with any album that he released, but it's such a short list, especially with artists that continue to record albums. Like, you keep on going, you're gonna have some duds in comparison to your best stuff. But with the Clipse, with Lord Willin', Hell Hath No Fury, Till the Casket Drops, are they in that 3 for 3 club? Or do you look at Till the Casket Drops as being just a step below those first two? Let me know your thoughts in the comments on that. But when the Clipse were doing their thing with Lord Willin' and Hell Hath No Fury, I didn't necessarily look at one brother as being more of being a better rapper than the other. Like, to be honest, with some of the songs, I really couldn't tell when Pusha T stopped and when Malice began. I mean, Malice had a voice that was a little bit more like in terms of his vocal timbre, whereas Pusha T sounded more, he had a little bit more bass in his voice generally. But I didn't look at Pusha T as necessarily being a better rapper than No Malice. I don't think that I ever thought that until maybe between Hell Hath No Fury and Till the Casket Drops. Then I started seeing a little bit of separation, but not much. I really looked at them as pretty much being on par with one another. Like, they both had super clever coke rap and lifestyle rap type of lines throughout their verses. They were both saying very witty stuff. But Pusha T, as he embarked on his solo career, first with that mixtape Fear of God, which I remember it had the single I Still Want to Sell Kilos. Who was that with? Rick Ross, I believe. I used to love that track on that first Fear of God mixtape. Then he had the mixtape Wrath of Cain after having a Fear of God 2 Let Us Pray mixtape. Then he started dropping the solo albums, like non-mixtape proper albums, My Name Is My Name, then King Push, which I still look at as maybe being his best. I know Daytona is seen as being his gold standard, right? The fully Kanye produced Daytona from 2018 that finished with Infrared, which kind of kicked off or continued that beef with Drake. But yeah, Daytona was good. It's Almost Dry, that had like some reuniting songs with Pharrell, like tracks 1 and 2, Brambleton and Let the Smokers Shine the Coupes. I really like that It's Almost Dry album. I know some people don't think that it was as good as Daytona, but I almost look at them as being closer than a lot of people think. And again, King Push, I still see as maybe being his best album. Basically, what I'm saying is, from a solo rapper standpoint, I don't think Pusha T has missed with any of his 4 albums. So I think that he might, damn, when you consider the Clipse discography, then the Pusha T solo discography, Pusha T is an MF when it comes to just high quality and consistency. So yeah, I would have never thought that he would have had the solo career that he's had up to this point. His time with Good Music and his time after Good Music with Kanye and without Kanye. And Pharrell is going to have a big hand in this upcoming Clipse album. So I'm excited to hear that reunion basically between Pharrell and the Clipse. I don't think or know if Chad Hugo, the other half of the Neptunes, is involved. I haven't heard anything about that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this Clipse album. And let me know your thoughts on when the Clipse dropped their first 2 albums. Did you necessarily see Pusha T as being a better rapper than Malice / No Malice? I didn't see it that way. And it wasn't until they started doing these recent, basically No Malice was out of the game for a while. Then he came back, he's dropped a couple solo albums, but in some of the more recent Clipse features on other artists' stuff, and there have been a few now, Now I could kind of see, okay, Pusha T has gotten a lot better, I think, even since his Clipse days, to where Malice kind of sounds like the same dude who was on those Clipse tracks, which isn't bad. Again, I love those Clipse albums and I love their verses, but you could hear more of an evolution, I think, lyrically and pattern wise and cadence wise and conceptually, and their style of putting their phrases together. I hear more of an evolution in Pusha T. It's probably because he's gotten a lot more practice, a lot more reps in, right, with this solo career that he's been consistently building upon. So it's not any surprise that right now, I think that there does seem to be a difference in bar by bar quality. Although I will say the Clipse just released their comeback song, their first single from this upcoming album. The song is called Ace Trumpets, and Pusha T's got the first verse, No Malice has the next verse, and Pusha T's verse is just incredible. Like, just the patterns and the vocal pockets, where you place your words and where you don't, and how you phrase. Like, you don't just go from beginning of the measure, start your bar there, to the end of the measure, end your bar there. No, you're kind of like weaving these phrases in it's like a tapestry of wordplay. It's just beautiful stuff. And even though No Malice, even though he is a little bit more standardized in his patterns as it relates to the beat, basically there's a little bit more uniformity there. But in terms of his wit and his humor and his cleverness in these bars, No Malice is still bringing it. Don't get it twisted. So yeah, I don't think that it's gonna sound like somebody who's been in retirement. Again, he's dropped a couple solo albums, solo projects. I don't think it's gonna sound like one of the goats of the modern era and then somebody who's out of practice. No, I think this is gonna be a true Clipse album with both of them on their game on Let God Sort 'Em Out. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. First of all, what is your favorite Clipse album? What is your favorite Pusha T solo project? Yeah, it could be an album or it could be one of his mixtapes. Same thing with the Clipse. It could be one of the We Got It For Cheap mixtapes. But let me know your favorite on both fronts, and what are you expecting on this upcoming Let God Sort 'Em Out album? Do you think it's going to be a step below their first 3 albums? And again, do you think that Till the Casket Drops from 2009 was a step below the 2 albums prior to that, Lord Willin' and Hell Hath No Fury? Let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments. And again, Pusha T, career-wise, I didn't see this coming, and he was also the first to beat Drake in a battle, basically, right? With that Story of Adidon track, which was in response to Duppy. And I personally, I liked Duppy as a diss track more than the Story of Adidon, but with content-wise, what Pusha T was revealing to the world, like, that was kind of like, it had Drake saying, hey, you crossed the line there, and it had him basically circling the wagons, as did Kendrick Lamar, now that I think about it. Yeah, but anyway, let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments. Also, do you think there's gonna be a variance in concepts? Because if you think about it, like, topically, Pusha T has pretty much always been on that coke rap. I mean, he's, again, evolved in terms of his lyrical abilities, I think, and his style a little bit, but in terms of what he's talking about, it's still coke rap express. Whereas No Malice, again, he's not about that. But you know, you listen to the Ace Trumpets song, the new single, and he's not talking about, you know, he's not doing the coke rap thing so much, but it's some braggadocio, you know, lifestyle rap, you know. So is there going to be any friction or kind of conflict of concepts where Pusha T is constantly talking coke and No Malice is not on that? Or do you think there's going to be actual synergy in the way that we've gotten from them in past projects? And I do think that there are going to be some tracks that are more like reality check types of songs instead of just the hardcore coke rap, right? Where every bar is just some outlandish, you know, allegory or something, right? But yeah, do you think that they're going to be on the same page more or less in terms of what they're talking about in their verses? Or is it going to be clear that, you know, I mean, to oversimplify it or just to give you a visual, you've got the devil on one shoulder, Pusha T, you got the angel on the other shoulder. It's like No Malice. Is it going to be like that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love hip hop like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.